Let's dive into our conversation. Before we begin, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about their organizations. Let's start with Yukiko. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Um, Good evening, everyone. I am Yukiko Kato, based in Tokyo, and I am the managing director of the SBI Investment, which is one of the biggest venture capital in terms of the asset under management in Japan. And, uh, and SBI Investment has got the history as a venture capital about the 25 years in Japan, and HealthTech is one of our investment targets. And we are originally SBI Investment was established as a spin-off from the SoftBank, which is one of the largest mobile company in Japan. But we ex expanded our investment target not only to the IT or the telecom sector, but also the healthcare and energy, environment, and financial technology sector. And as I said, the health tech is one of the important investment topics. And that's why we are keen to meet entrepreneurs from which is from the health tech industry. And as for myself, I'm working as a venture capitalist about the 20 years. And at the early stage of my career as a venture capital, I was specialist in making an investment to the startups coming from the university, Japanese university, and particularly as a Japanese university, they are generally good at the technology in the biotechnology or the healthcare, health tech. So I'm very keen on finding a good seed or technology coming from the university as well as private company in the health tech industry. And today I'm very happy to meet all of you, and I'm very glad to participate in this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yukiko. Yumiko?
Hi, yes. My name is Yumiko Murakami. I'm a general partner at MPower Partners. We are Japan-based global VC fund. We invest roughly 70% of capital in Japan and the rest 30% outside Japan, quite a few US companies, as well as Asian companies. We tend to focus more on the on later side of equation versus what Yukiko does. She has a lot of early stage companies in her portfolio. We tend to be a little bit more on the growth side of capital structure. We are sector agnostic. We do look at a healthcare sector, however, very closely, and we have made a few very interesting investments in this space. We are, especially, Japanese companies. We're really interested in companies that have global aspirations. I mean, healthcare is essentially it's a global business and global markets, and so obviously we're not healthcare specialists, but I think it's important that we look for entrepreneurs who understand the global landscape when they look at opportunities. And that applies really well to healthcare industries as well. So this is something that we always look for. People who understand what's surrounding them, but also beyond their borders. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nagisa, please.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Nagisa Sakurai from Astellas Venture Management. Astellas Venture Management is corporate venture capital, so we are 100% subsidiary of Astellas Pharma. So we are looking at the early stage companies that is aligned with Astellas corporate strategy. So in terms of the therapeutic area, we are heavily investing in oncology early stage companies. And also we are prioritize cell and gene therapies for regenerative medicine. So we are also looking for the interesting opportunity for cell and gene therapies. Recently, outside of oncology as well as cell and gene therapies, we are looking for early stage companies who have cutting edge technologies for fibrosis as well, especially fibrosis. And then our purpose is to help the capital of the early stage companies, which has the interesting technologies, but too early for us to go for the partnering. And then once the companies hit the specific milestone, we very much facilitate the collaboration between our portfolio companies and Astellas Pharma. For myself, I'm a research scientist by training. I had more than 10 years experience in cell therapy for degenerative medicine. And then after that, I joined corporate strategy for 2 years. And then I started my venture capitalist career about 3 years. And I really look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So for those of you in the audience who have not picked up on it, all of these three are going to be incredibly helpful long-term partners for you if you are looking for someone to advise you on your growth strategy and scale. It's refreshing to hear your strategies against the background of those who are a little bit more short-term oriented, I might say. So let's dive right into our Q&A part of this discussion. And let's talk about health innovation trends and what we're looking at. So I'm going to start with Yukiko, please. What trends in the global healthcare sector excite you the most right now? And where are you seeing the greatest opportunity to scale, both from across the board, from products, from other technologies? Thank you. There you go.
Okay, that's a difficult question, but in terms of the Japan market, I should say HealthTech. Mostly, recently the trend is that the digitalization or the software technology is coming to the healthcare industry, particularly in software as a medical devices are one of the hot topics in Japan market, and some of them got the insurance from the Japanese government. So they are officially authorized the medical devices as a software, and that is a very hot topic. And the other one is this one might be that something that Nagisa-san might speak, but gene therapy or cell therapy, particularly in what is use of the iPS technology, which is also the hot target to invest about in this 10 years, because iPS technology is what it generated in Japanese scientists, and the government is heavily making a grant to support or foster the iPS technology and start the industry related to the cell therapy. So I think one of the hot topics or technology is what is called the SAMD, software as a medical devices, and the other one is cell therapy, I think. Yes.
That's very interesting, because I know here in the US, there's a sort of pullback from gene therapy because of certain things that have happened on the product side. But maybe I think it'd be quite interesting for our audience to learn a little bit about the environment that the Japanese government has fostered to encourage gene therapy and cell therapy. Nagisa, do you want to touch on this too, perhaps?
Yes, sure. Yes, I agree that what you said in US or maybe globally,
Yeah.
cell therapy, gene therapy is a little bit, the investors are stepping out. It's because they say that this area is not efficient. Of course, we spent more than 10 years, but it is still difficult to develop the real product yet. We were still working on the basic research to the manufacturing areas. However, as Yukiko-san mentioned, that we know that this is not easy, and we also have to heavily work with the academics scientists who has been working in this area for over 20 years or something. So that's why I think definitely this timing, the government funding or government support are very important. And then, as Yukiko-san pointed out, luckily that we have the strong support from government. That's we believe we can push this area forward by using more non-dilutive fund. But of course, when that we have some breakthrough, we believe that investors will come back. But of course, cell gene therapy is a little bit in the difficult situation right now. But the regenerative medicine itself, it's not only to restrict in the cell and the gene therapy. Sometimes the companies are working with antibodies to stimulate the specific the signaling in the cellular signaling to reverse the cell state. So we still believe, in terms of the Japanese social challenges, we have a lot of elderly peoples. So the regenerative medicine to recover the function, it will be very much important. So I hope to see that we will keep focusing on to regenerate the lost functions by medicine.
Thank you. And Yumika, would you also answer that question about what healthcare trends excite you right now, both in Japan and globally? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to just add a few more comments on the same topic, as I sit on the panel, advisory panel for the Prime Minister's office. And, it is true that bio industry, in particular gene and cell therapy space, is identified as one of the top priority areas for the Japanese government. If you look at the most recent paper that's been published, along the side of things like quantum computing, fusion energy, and you have this bio, gene and cell therapy space, which is really high on the agenda for the Japanese government. And it is true, if you look at the budget allocated to this particular segment of the economy, you can see how much commitment there is on the part of the Japanese government in terms of trying to enhance the activities in this space and really promote development of this as an industry. And I think another thing that may be interesting for the audience is the fact that there is definitely a notion that in terms of cost-effective, performance perspective, Japan actually is looking pretty attractive when it comes to clinical trials. It's, as Nagisa said, it's extremely expensive to go through the whole, process or processes of developing commercializing this type of new emerging technologies, i.e. gene and cell therapies, especially in the United States. And I do believe Japan actually can offer a very attractive alternative when it comes to developing or commercializing some of these seeds into much more mass production phase. Japan has a very strong IP protection environment, so you don't have to worry so much about someone is going to lose my my golden idea, but it also in terms of social infrastructure as well as technology readiness, as well as skilled labor that's required for this industry. Japan actually has a pretty good environment. So I think it's something that a lot of people would look at as an alternative in terms of where do we want to develop my seeds into the commercialization phase. I do think where is the Japanese yen today? I don't know exactly, but yen is very weak, has been very weak. So especially if you're coming from the US side of things, and if you look at everything in the Japanese yen, you would be surprised how cost effective the Japanese option might look like. When you're thinking about the next phase, how much do I need to raise to go through the next clinical trial? So just something that I wanted to mention.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it seems like the Japanese market is very attractive right now. And I think for many companies, I've been working in biotech, medtech, pharma for a long time. We always had the perception of Japan being a closed and, sort of difficult to enter market. But it seems like, what we don't know is that in the meantime, the Japanese government has been very astute in investing in some of these technologies that will drive the next generation, fundamentally change our biotech and pharma industries for sure, as well as I'm sure in the medtech industry where Japan is already quite strong. So let's go on to our next question. So we know that in Japan you have this challenge of an aging population and an infrastructure, perhaps the hospital infrastructure is not easy to grow overnight. What do you see as sort of key, let's call it health tech innovation that have the potential to really radically transform the Japanese healthcare ecosystem? I'll start this time with Nagisa, please.
Sure, yes. I think the big issue, I think that maybe that is good question to Yumiko-san, but again, Astellas is a farmer, so we cannot ignore the issues of the aging population issues. So that's why we started this regenerative medicine laboratory. Sorry, maybe I'm repeating the same answers,
no,
but
it's useful. Yeah.
Yeah, but we want to increase it, or we want to reverse the disease condition is because we want to cure the patient who become more healthier, because even our lifespan is very long. However, if they are in the disease conditions, it costs a lot for the medical medical fee, and we don't want to we want to solve such problem. So that's why we are aiming to reverse the disease condition. That's why we are not working for disease, slowing down the disease conditions. We are really heavily focusing on the regenerative medicine to reverse the function. That's why we are looking at this in aging population issues.
Is there a particular branch of science that you're focusing on? I am just trying to dig in a little deeper because of course regenerative medicine can encompass a broad range of things. Sure. But maybe you could share a little bit of those insights.
Yeah, so for example, our lead program of cell therapy is targeting the elderly people for the ophthalmology area. So when you get older, you will lose the sight, and then there is no drugs or cure to reverse the function of sight. But when our solution is to implant the specific cells into the eye, and then we believe that these implanted cells provide the sight again for the patient. So if you have the sight, you can very much increase your quality of life. You can drive, you can read the books. Absolutely. And you can have the more social interaction with the others. One of the aging population, the issue is when you lose the healthy condition, you will be isolated, and then the condition is going worse faster, and we want to stop such a condition. That's when we started from the site, but the ophthalmology area. However, we believe that this cell therapy or regenerative medicine can will kind of provide the higher quality of life for the aging populations.
Thank you. Yumiko, would you also answer that, please? Thank you about the.
Yeah, I think Japan is must be a very interesting experimental kind of country for the rest of the world, as we are literally the fastest aging society in the world. What is it? We have 127 million people live in Japan. That's going to go down to sub 100 mil in the next 20 years. It's just how quickly we're shrinking and how quickly we're aging. And I think it does pose quite a few challenges, but at the same time, I think I see a lot of opportunities as well. It just creates what we call silver economy. So clearly, that means there are a number of very exciting sort of medical field opportunities, but also just on the more sort of consumer level, things like I can tell you, 30 years ago, no one thought there would be a bigger market for adult diapers. Today, adult diapers sell much more than baby diapers, right? So this is just a very simple example of how silver economy, silver markets that, people didn't really envision or foresee it just literally 20, 30 years ago. And there are, that's the reality. So as I said, silver economy presents a number of challenges. At the same time, there are a number of opportunities. Again, we're talking about just this consumer level, diaper example, but obviously, in the healthcare space, as Nagisa-san said, there are just so many super interesting opportunities in the medical field, which were not obvious just literally 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And Japan is sort of front line of witnessing how these opportunities sort of unfold in front of our eyes. So I think it's a really interesting place for anybody who's interested in making investments into this silver economy sort of phase. Japan is a place to be.
Thank you so much. And Yukiko, please, would you answer that question about what excites you right now in terms of health innovation?
Yes, yes, I can agree that the aging population can be a driver to make a Japan market growth in the healthcare or the health tech industry. But at the same time, I have to point out aging population itself is one of the serious problem which we are facing right now, because as you know, Japan has got the universal health insurance system, and what is a very good health policy as a whole. But what its problem is social security becoming more and more the heavily burden of Japan economy. And we have to face how we can balance the growth and social security provision. So that is a question. So what I think which is needed for now in Japan is that we need to bring thinking how we can make a bit more efficient by using a technology or the cutting edge technology to make healthcare industry more sustainable, at the same time more efficient. I think that is a very important topics. Yes, for now we have.
So that brings up that magic two letters, right? AI, it seems a bit overused these days, especially when it comes to investment theses. But there is certainly, everybody has agreed, there's room, just as you say, Yukiko, to make our healthcare systems much more efficient. And I'm just curious if I mean, there's lots of bureaucracy. I know here in the U.S. I'm sure that is not just confined here, but let's just delve into that topic. I mean, what is the most exciting application of AI that you are all looking at in healthcare, both from a research and development standpoint to actually looking at efficiencies to be gained in health administration and delivery. So I'm going to start with Nagisa, please.
Yeah, sure. I think the strengths of AI for drug discovery is, of course, the AI can, how can I say, like, analyze or use the, like big data with a fast, speed. For example, recently Assessment Management completed investment in the US Israel startup, which is developing their new cell therapy combined with AI. I believe that AI can do everything, or they can some AIs maybe can create something new drug. However, more there what we very expect is there are a lot of or mixed data or lots of data out there, but if you try to analyze by yourself, it is taking forever, or sometimes you have specific bias to develop the new drug. However, if you use the AI, they can analyze or use all available data, or the generated data by academic scientists, and they can combine with them, and then they can create the new solution or a new kind of design of the drugs that we didn't have idea, or like a non-biased way. And then that is what we are excited at this moment. But on the other hand, the data for to be used by AI is very much important. So I don't think even the AI is advanced or developed very well. We definitely need the scientist who has a lot of the high skills, because you have to kind of decide if the outcome is like right or wrong, or the original data. When I spoke with the professors who founded this company, they spend a lot of time to how can I say, like check. They spend a lot of time to check the data, the quality. Something, especially they use the public data. So AI can do so many things that we cannot handle. However, the scientist is very much important. So, but that's we are very much looking at this moment.
Thank you so much. Yumiko, would you address that too, or what you're looking at in AI and what you think the biggest area for
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting features of the Japanese healthcare industry, especially when it comes to comparison with other countries, is the fact that, as Yukiko said, we have a very robust universal healthcare system. Effectively, it's free. The quality of healthcare is pretty consistent, available for everyone. And yes, of course, there are problems in terms of how much it is costing the government, and how sustainable it is. But at the same time, one of the benefits is the fact that there has been a huge accumulation of data as a result of this system that we have had in Japan for a number of years. Now, the problem is a lot of this data is not in the form of digital. And you'd be surprised, in Japan, pretty much everyone in the society has this healthcare checkup every year, and from when they're born to until they die. And they have again, the accumulation of this type of data, which really covers the entire population, different age groups, and men and women. And again, the consistency, the data quality is incredible if it can be digitized, and if it can be cleansed, if it can be really used for quality training data. And quite frankly, it's not an easy task, just because even though there is so much information, so much data in terms of systems that are run by different hospitals, there is not much of a consistency, to be honest with you. So even though there is this information about my health data, it's not really managed in a very systematic way by different health care institutions. So there are challenges, but the fact is, for the last 40 to 50 years, the Japanese government has been very, very diligent in terms of implementing this universal healthcare system in Japan. And therefore, that has created a huge, huge amount of high quality data, which covers the entire population. So again, the opportunity here is when we have this tool of AI, when we have this digitization age, how do we make sure that we're not losing this much of information? Again, it's manual, it's in paper, and be sure that we use that to our advantage in terms of drug discoveries and any sort of R&D type of activities. I think Japan can be a very, very interesting place to do that. So I would imagine this is it's not cheap, it's expensive, but in terms of what we have, it's incredible in terms of the potentials that we see.
Yeah, interesting. Yukiko, please, would you talk about how you're looking at AI from your viewpoint?
Yes, I am totally agree with Yumiko-san by saying that the Japanese hospital IT system is not advanced and not universally generalized, and that's why, because there are many huge medical data which are not digitalized, and they are very fragmented and universally generalized. So that's why we can make use of the medical data, digitalized medical data, and to bring meaningful the outcome coming from from the analysis of the data. So one of the area, obviously, the AI can play a huge important role. And the other area AI can play is in Japan, the doctors or the physicians are very scarce resources. So one of the area the AI can be implemented is the diagnosis, particularly image diagnosis, and so support. It's not a diagnosis, it's diagnostic support, which can help the doctor, the physicians, to make diagnosis. So AI can play a good role to help the doctor, the physician, make a decision or give a prescription. So that's where the AI can play the good role.
Yes, that's a very good point, and I know we've seen that. We've seen the application of AI both in certain areas like bronchoscopy and endoscopy, and just generally in radiology, right, where there's so many images to look at, and AI can expedite and perhaps provide a little bit more confidence in the diagnosis. Very, very interesting. And just because we've talked a little bit about how foresighted the Japanese government is in its investment in health. Is that another area that that the Japanese government is investing in, is looking at, is in AI?
Definitely, yes. And I think what's kind of interesting about the situation is the fact that there is very little, at least at this moment, concern in terms of people losing their jobs because of AI, which I think is a huge social problem in the United States. And, quite frankly, it has become such a huge social issue in the US, which, is very different in Japan. As I said earlier, we have this situation where there is such a severe shortage of labor. Even though the Japanese government is pushing very aggressively in automation, digitization, AI application, at least for the foreseeable future, at least in the next, say, 5 years, I don't think anyone is expecting to see the same level of tension that we're seeing in the US in terms of people worrying about, getting fired because, their workplaces have so many robotics and AI agents, and they're doing my job now. The machines are doing my job. So I do think it's an opportunity for Japan. I think the Japanese government is in a position to really aggressively promote digitization and automation and AIization without without really worrying about this sort of social division, social tensions that have become such a huge political challenge in other societies, especially in the United States. So I would think timing wise, it's a really good time for Japan to really embrace this type of technological advancement.
Interesting. Thank you. Yes. Nagisa, we did have another participant who unfortunately could not make it today at the last minute, representing Olympus, but you were with Astellas, and I wanted to talk a little bit about for our audience about the role that you see partnerships playing between startups and large pharma companies in accelerating innovation and helping to scale, and all the great things that happen when a large company becomes involved. Maybe you can take that first.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, the partnership between startups and also pharma are is very much important, as you pointed out. Is because recent innovations is coming from academia, especially statistically, the new drugs in pharma. I think over 50 or 60% are coming from startups or academia sources. And of course, recent farmers, we don't believe that we can diversify ourselves. That's why we are looking at the opportunities outside. And why this partnering or partnerships is important is because the startups or academia has a very good source, especially those people working for over 10 years for in the specific areas. They have very much specialty in the specific areas, so they have a lot of capability for science or basic research. However, what they don't have is again the capital, especially they are very much experiencing the science. However, they don't look at the manufacturing or commercializations. Also, they are not familiar with regulatory when they use the new modality. On the other hand, the pharma has such capabilities in the history, right? So we have huge capital to build the manufacturing facilities. We have especially for regulatory perspectives, as well as we have medical doctors. So that's why we are very much familiar with the later stage to develop the drugs. So that's why we want to collaborate. We believe that there is a lot of synergies between the early stage companies or biotechs and the pharma. And we have been talking about open innovations maybe in the past 10 years, how we can collaborate or incorporate the opportunity from external opportunities. We are still we cannot find the answer that this is the way. We are always struggling with different approaches. However, we believe that the collaborations, partnering is very much important for accelerating innovations from our perspectives.
Thank you, Nagisa. And I'm sure our audience members were gratified to hear that you also consider partnering with early stage companies, because that's not always the case with larger production companies. So, Yumiko, it seems like you are the first ESG focused VC. Is that accurate? And how does that lens shape your investment decisions in the healthcare space in particular?
Yes, we are probably in the context of Japan. We are probably the first sort of ESG integrated venture capital fund. But I think that it's kind of confusing, because when we do use ESG framework when it comes to identifying risks, identifying opportunities. We're actually not so-called social impact fund. We actually we actually attempt to maximize financial returns. However, we do find the ESG framework that we use extremely useful in the like I said, earlier, not only just identifying risk factors, but also identifying opportunities. So what we do with companies is that we talk to them about ESG factors, ESG elements that have a very strong direct connectivity with their business plan. So we don't have to have we don't have to check every box because we're not social impact fund. We're not required to do XYZ, but we do look at the ESG framework and then say, okay, what are the elements that you think would help you make money? And that's how we kind of work with the companies that we invest in. And that means every company has a different priorities and different sort of elements, ESG elements that they would identify as drivers for their businesses. And that's totally fine, again, because we're not doing box ticking exercise. So we find that approach extremely useful. And even though I understand, especially in America, there is this anti-ESG, huge sort of anti-DEI, anti-ESG, sort of trend that's been going, I guess, for the last year or two. As far as we are concerned, it really doesn't matter because we're not doing this to check, tick boxes.
Right.
What I mean is only because some of these things, not everything, some of these elements in the ESG framework can be extremely useful in order for the companies to grow. So that's the way we kind of look at the framework.
Yes, I understand that. And I think, as my father wisely says, moderation in everything, including moderation, right? So, but I think using the ESG lens to look at how we save resources and how, the changing regulatory environment will impact manufacturing and things like that. Certainly that's clever to pay attention to. Yukiko, you are with SBI, which is a global group.
Yes.
How do you see cross-border collaboration and shaping the growth of Japanese health startups and ex-Japan startups in general? And maybe just because I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs on the line here, what kind of vision do you like to see from CEOs with respect to their strategy when it comes to going global?
Sure. Okay. Speaking about the cross-border market, so obviously Japan market alone it's difficult to grow. So by all means, we need to interact with the global market as a Japanese investors. So we are very happy to have a communication with overseas entrepreneurs or the startups which aim to come to Japan market or have a go-to-market strategy to Japan. So we are very much happy to communicate or discuss with them. And as for the SBI investment, as of today, around 70% go to the domestic market to invest, but we are trying to make more the global investment and we are trying to make ourselves to be more global institutional investors or the venture capitals. So in that sense, we are trying to find more the excellent investment opportunity also outside of Japan to make a startup which can hit a huge growth to change Japan market.
So I'm just curious, and any of you can answer this. When when you're evaluating investment opportunities, like what percent right now are coming from Japan, and what percent is coming outside of Japan? Because I have learned through this conversation that that the Japanese capital markets and you all in particular are a very well kept secret. At least for me, you are a well kept secret that that there's so much. I knew about the Japanese government's investment in gene and cell therapy, but I hadn't realized how strong and long term it was. But what if you could just answer that? I think that'd be interesting to find out, the percent that just comes over the deal flow that just comes across your desk now. So maybe Yumiko, can you take that one first?
Yeah, okay. So I think we just have to admit the fact that we did start from a very low base. So in terms of, how much capital we have, how much risk capital we have in the Japanese ecosystem, again, in comparison with the US, for example. So given that we kind of started a little bit late in terms of how much, we've been investing, where the capital has been flowing into startup ecosystem, because we started from a relatively low base in terms of the growth momentum, we still have very strong momentum. Of course, in the last 2 years has been very difficult for Japan as well as other countries too. But if you look at how in the US, especially in Silicon Valley, all of a sudden there was no money. 21, 22, money everywhere, and then 23, 24, like all of a sudden there's like no money. It was this very sort of dramatic change in terms of how much capital there was and how little capital there is today. So in Japan, because we started from a very low base, we have been steadily growing, and there's also, as you mentioned earlier, there's a very strong commitment and support from the Japanese government. There's quite a bit of public money as well. In the last year and a half, we have been slowing down. But in terms of how much capital has been flowing into this ecosystem, it's down a little bit, but not much. So again, relative to the other major markets like United States, where there was like night and day, just very dramatic shift, we actually have been much more sort of mild in terms of the drop we have seen in the last 18 months or so. And structurally, there is just so much more to be done in terms of encouraging startups to grow in the Japanese economy. Relative to the size of GDP, relative to the size of capital markets, there is just so much more room to grow. I have noticed in the last maybe 12 months or so, more and more non-Japanese startups coming to Japan for fundraising. And that is kind of interesting because I did not see that when we started to invest 5 years ago. We did not see that. It's only the last year or two that we start to see many non-Japanese startups coming to Japan for fundraising. And I do believe it's the function of the US market complete debt. There's just no funding for startups. And the Japanese market, again, we're starting from a very small low base. But because we started from a low base, even though there has been a little bit of decline, it's not huge, and there is still money around. There is still risk money that's looking for opportunities. So I think it's a great time for non-Japanese companies to see if there are opportunities for them to find partners, investors. I do think this is a really interesting time in history.
Thank you. Yeah. Nagisa, would you comment like sort of deal flow, Japanese, not Japanese?
Yeah, so it's hard for me to say specific numbers because originally, Astellas Venture Management, headquarters. It's even still like AVM, headquarters is in San Francisco. It's because originally, we were targeting, US kind of startups or opportunities because US is the best opportunity for the past 20 years. But of course, we have our Astellas Pharma headquarters is in Japan, and then what I have been noticed recently is that Japanese startups are the number of Japanese startups for fundraising is increasing every single year. Originally, we are introduced from Japanese VCs. Most of the opportunities are introduced by Japanese VCs because they have the specific relationships. However, recently the global VCs also introduced us for Japanese startups, meaning is, Japanese startups, recently can fundraise from global VCs. So I think that is, one kind of what we see is that, Japanese startups are originated from Japan. However, when they grow, they can maybe, choose, to grow in Japan or globally, or in a specific timings, they come to US, and then in the deal flow from the global farmer, several Japanese startups already included. So I cannot say again, I don't remember, or I cannot, I never counted, how many deals.
Right.
But but tendencies, what I want to say is increasing, obviously increasing, and then sometimes it's not restricted in the cell gene therapies, new technologies in the medical device, there's so many different, the diverse opportunities are coming from Japan. That is, we are very much, happy to see that.
Good. And Yukiko, how about you?
Yes, sure. There are so many pipeline or the early stage startups come in Japan. So I think there are many opportunities to make investment within the Japan market. But what is lacking for Japan market in terms of the startup industry is growth capital, the growth investors. And that's why I'm expecting for the global investors or global institutional investors come to Japan and make an investment to Japan startups. Yeah. That's what I'm expecting.
Thank you. I see now we've been having so much fun that we're only 5 minutes away from the end of this wonderful panel discussion. I'm going to open it up to, and maybe we have some questions coming in from our listening audience. If we do, maybe Christina, you can share those with us. I don't know if we have them, but I'll just wait a bit. I have some my own questions. We'll call this our sort of lightning round, if you will. About let's just this is for all of you, and any of you can answer. What's one shift, so cultural, structural, or policy driven, that you believe would most accelerate health innovation in Japan? Any of you can just jump in and start, please.
One change that I think would make a huge difference is it would try to move away from this seniority-based promotion system within academia, within corporations, within research institutions. There is still culturally very strong, I guess, a sense adherence to age-based, seniority-based promotion. And I think if we could change that, and that's already changing. If you look at the Japanese labor market, it's incredible how fast it's changing. It used to be pretty much everyone had this lifetime employment system. Everyone was getting paid and promoted based on the age, and that's been changing very, very rapidly. It has become very much merit-based compensation, merit-based promotion system. So that's happening in the Japanese labor market, and I think that if something like that can happen within the healthcare industry, especially research institutions, universities, and companies, healthcare companies, that can really accelerate the digitization. A lot of technologies would be more proactively promoted, and I do think that would make a huge difference.
Thank you. I just want to add that if you have a question in the audience, please type it in the chat so we can learn those. I see. I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry, and I thought that was in the directions. So anybody else want to tackle that question about what one thing could really radically accelerate innovation in Japan?
I don't know that this is the answer, but I hope the society of Japan will be changed to accelerate the innovation, the more overall, because I realized that in Japan people are still afraid of failing. Kind of, it's not a failing, but if you try and then if you couldn't achieve your goal at the first time, there's sometimes the environment or society, does not accept, for that's such, first failure. However, here in US, it's, failure is the path for the success, and they try keep, trying, they are, keep trying and trying for success, and then that is the, kind of driver for innovations. So especially if, there are audience for in the young people, I really want you to not to be afraid of, challenge, and then in trying, and then not afraid for the failure. And then if you keep working, you will reach some kind of success for the innovation.
Thank you. Yes. So what advice, you're all successful venture capitalists. What advice would you give to young people who are seeking to enter the world of venture capital today? If you had to go back in time and look to see what lessons you learned. Yukiko, would you want to start for us?
Yeah, sure. So, I believe being a venture capitalist is one of the wonderful career which can achieve, because you can work with excellent people who are very armed to grow on their own and making money literally. And that is one of the excellent moments we can share in our life. So in meeting the excellent people or the company or the startups, and that is a very excellent experience which you can have as a venture capitalist. So I encourage young people to be a venture capitalist or working for a startup or work with the startups. Yeah.
Anybody else with some quick advice? And maybe we stay about 2 minutes over. I know we started late. Is that all right with you panelists? 2 minutes? Yeah. Anybody else with advice for any young people listening here today?
I would say if you look at the pure supply demand picture, things are looking good for young people. I'm telling you, this is the country. This is the country. I'm looking at the Japanese demographic trend. I used to work for OECD, so I look at all these macro data points. If I were 23 years old in Japan, I would be feeling like I own the world. I mean, supply demand looks great for me. There's such a value because I'm so young, and I do believe this is particularly true in the venture capital industry, startup industries. It is just supply demand. I mean, there's just so much demand, there's so little supply. So I say, if you're a young person, you're so lucky.
Yeah, great. Yukiko, do you want to chime in here? Oops.
Yep.
Yeah. About what
Yeah, I'm
advice?
okay.
Yeah, okay. What advice you would give to a young person who wants to enter the VC world?
Yes, just try and do your best.
Yeah.
And meet the excellent people and create industry. Yeah.
Thank you. So we do have one question from the audience. I'd be curious what Japan is doing with respect to using robots in healthcare. That goes hand in hand with AI. So I'll open that up to any of you to answer.
There are a number of companies that are trying to do that, especially in the nursing industry. Again, talking about aging society, and there's a huge need to take care of older citizens, and there's such a severe shortage of labor. Japan has opened up sort of immigration, and we actually now have quite a few non-Japanese workers in this segment of the economy, but even that is not enough. So there are quite a few startups who are looking to develop robotics, especially to work in nursing homes or hospital environments. So that's actually probably Japan is again cutting edge. I think the opportunities for this type of service, this type of robotics, this goes way beyond Japan. So Japan is immediate need, but China, for example, next, that's another huge opportunity. So when it comes to investing, I do think it's one of the very interesting growth opportunities in terms of automation, in terms of robotics. It's
Right.
not just the robotics you think of, but also just software based sort of games, for example, which can help older patients to stimulate their mental, things like that are just being developed in a very fast way.
Excellent. Anybody else want to talk about robotics?
Yeah, this is more like our internal activities, but we combined robotics and AI for the drug discovery as well as manufacturing, because sometimes like robotics, I mean like in some complicating modalities, drug type is if we the human, there are a lot of human error if we use the human for the manufacturing, but if we use the robotics and combined with AI, we can guarantee more higher quality and then also the consistency. So we are very much working to establish such a way for robotics in the manufacturing as well as the more screening type of things like for the drug discovery.
Excellent. Yukiko, would you like to opine on that?
No, I'm okay. I did have a not particular comment on robotics. I'm not good at them. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Listen, a question to actually to Yukiko, right? Are there notable differences in terms of the most visible application areas between Japan, the US, and China about software as a medical device? Some countries may be good on visualization, which would lead to diagnosis, and others may focus on data management. Can you opine on that?
Yes. I'm not so much knowledgeable about the China market and US market, but what I can say regarding the Japan market is as I say, the Japanese government authority is trying to promote digitalized software-based medical devices, which can make people to change their behavior, like stop smoking or eat smart, that kind of things, or keep your mental health.
Yeah.
So that is where the technology or the digital technology can play an important role to change or update or modernize of the software and medical devices. So Japan is obviously is interesting market, and there are more and more, and the pipelines are coming to the market. Yes.
So we have a few more questions, but I also am very conscious because it is evening in Japan, and we certainly don't want to overstay our welcome here. But we will share some of these questions with our panelists, and hopefully they can respond to you individually. So I want to thank you all for joining us here today. This has been an incredibly rich and inspiring conversation. I've learned a lot. Thank you. To our remarkable panelists, Yukiko, Yumiko, and Nagisa, thank you so much for sharing your candor, your insights, and all the work, that great work that you're doing to advance innovation, not just in Japan, but around the world. What you're telling us today, it truly embodies the transformation that's underway. And we're really inspired to have you all as leaders helping the rest of us to propel our healthcare forward. What we heard today, we hope that it inspires future conversations and new connections and ideas for all of you listening here today. We will try to continue the dialogue. Again, we'll get back to you on some of the questions that you've posed in the chat. And we're looking forward to seeing all of you again in future webinars and also through the connectivity that we established today. So thank you again to our panelists. And hopefully we get to see you at future meetings and in future conversations. Thank you again. And Goodbye.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Good night.